Hey guys, it's Chris again, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build one of our small sub kits. This particular kit uses the Eminence 8-inch dual voice coil driver, part number 295-4008, and uses two of the Eminence passive radiators. This thing's a perfect match for the driver, essentially built specifically for this kit. This kit comes in two versions. There's a passive version, which you can use any outboard, tabletop, subwoofer amplifier, or there's an active version that's powered with the Young 200-watt subwoofer amplifier. Plate amp, just mount right in the box. The Enclosure is a de novo knockdown box, 0.64 cubic foot. Overall outside dimensions are 12 by 12 by 12, and this is a perfect subwoofer for either a small home system or bedroom system, something along those lines. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, as always, I always start off with dry fit in the enclosure. Again, just to make sure all the components are cut right, and so you're familiar with the proper construction, how all the pieces go together, because there's only one way in most of these kits. So we'll start off with just one side. Pick one side with the dados. It's going to be easiest to work with. We're going to start off just laying a bead of glue. Nice heavy bead as always. No such thing as too much. I like to spread it out with a foam brush or just any other cheap throwaway brush. Just get good coverage. And just go ahead and set your first panel in place. Make sure your edges are all lined up. In this case, the most important edge that you want lined up is the one without the dado, because this is where the front baffle is going to be sitting. Put one clamp in place just to hold that piece securely while you work on the next side. So, first piece clamped down, held in place. So we'll go ahead and lay another bead of glue from that piece on out. Spread that out evenly. Again, good coverage. And since this piece is going to meet up on that edge, we'll go ahead and lay a bead of glue on the facing side there. And you can set your second piece in place. And we'll go ahead and, again, just loosely clamp that one in place. So we'll hold it while we work on the next side. And I'm going to put the final side on in this gluing session. Make sure you're putting the right side down. And in this case, these two edges are going to be glued together, so I'm also going to lay a bead across the flat side of this piece. Go ahead and set that one in place. And again, watch the front edge. That's the one side you want to make sure is even. And one final clamp there. Now at this point, we wanted to use clamps to make sure everything, while it's still wet and we can move it, you want to use the clamps to make sure you get everything squared up and straight. So back to the back panel here, we're going to go ahead and get it nice and even. Clamp it down tight. Make sure that if there's any overlap at the bottom, you end up with the same amount at the top. And one clamp across the front. This clamp is to make sure that these are pulled tightly into the dado. You know, you want to make sure that each piece is held down flat to the bottom of every other piece. But in a case like this, you want to make sure that it's also pulled everything tight to the inside edge of the dado. Like a little opening there. Just going to go ahead and close it up with the clamp, just like so. Now we'll go ahead and stick the other piece with the dado on. The small cabinet is convenient because you can get most of it glued together with just 8 clamps and all in pretty much all at one time. Last piece into place. Everything will be nice and tight at this point. Alright, now we've let the glue set up overnight, so we got all the sides and back glued together. Now it's time to glue the baffle on. Now when gluing the baffle on, I like to put a real heavy bead, since once we put this piece on, we're not going to be able to get to the inside to spread it out. Any drips on the outside, don't have to worry too much about, because that can all scrape off or sand off real easy when you're finishing it all up. Now to clamp the baffle on, you should just need 4 clamps. This box is small enough that you don't have to worry too much about warping or anything like that. So just go with 1 clamp centered on each side. And before you get it real tight, make sure everything's nice and straight. Now anytime I'm gluing something like this where I'm putting the baffle on now and I can't get to the inside to spread the glue out evenly along the seams, I like to flip everything over so you let gravity do the work, and any of the excess glue on the inside now will pull down on the bottom, and that'll make sure that it seals up all the seams real well and get you a good airtight seal when you're done. Alright, now that we let the glue dry on the baffle overnight, I'm going to go ahead and mark out the center of each side where the woofers are going to mount. And I'm also going to mark the center of the back, which will make it easy for laying out for the amplifier or for your binding post, whichever choice or whichever version of the kit you're doing. So we'll start off, it's a 12-inch cube, so I've got my tri-square set at 6 inches. So we'll just start off putting a mark at 6 inches coming from the side and from the front. And I just like to use a nice square to find your centers. Go ahead and do that on each side. Now I've found that a good compass is hard to find, so this little Trammel set from M.POWER has become one of my favorite layout tools. This thing just attaches to any ruler and can become a compass of essentially any size you want. You can attach it to a yardstick to make giant circles, but pretty handy little tool. If you're using a router with a circle jig, then you really don't even need to draw out the circles. Just mark your center, set up your circle jig, and route it right out. And a lot of people like to cut the holes before they assemble the cabinet. That's also another option. I like doing it at the very end because, well, essentially no clamps involved. This thing will hold itself in place. I don't have to worry about cutting myself with the jigsaw or anything, which is what I'm going to use to cut this out. So go ahead and draw out the last side. And there we go. Enclosure's all ready to cut. Now that we got all the holes cut out, it's time to go ahead and sand all the edges down smooth. I've already sanded this one down, but yeah, sand it down, remove all the excess glue on the outside. If you saw our other subwoofer video, I like to sand up and over the edges. That'll keep the curve nice and smooth. If you run along the edges, you'll end up with flat spots that'll really show when it comes time to finish your enclosure. And now it's time to lay out all our holes. And when you lay out the holes for the amplifier, I like to use a square to hold up against the edge of the amp because there's always a little bit of play in the mounting of it. So just get it nice and straight on the edge of your square and mark out your holes. Once you've got all your holes laid out, go ahead and drill out pilot holes for the screws. Make them a lot easier to get into the MDF. Now the kit comes with one sheet of half-inch sonic barrier sound damping material. This I've marked it out into 10.5 by 9-inch squares and just cut it out with a pair of scissors. The sonic barrier has a real aggressive adhesive back on it, so you just got to pull off the wax paper and just adhere it to the inside of the cabinet. The trick with this is just cover as much of the inside walls as you can. I'm going to do a full piece on the top and bottom. Now just go ahead and cover up. You just apply it right over top of the driver holes. This stuff cuts real easy with one of the breakaway knives. And with all the excess, I'm just going to cut it up into strips and cover up as much of the inside as I can. And that one sheet will get pretty good coverage on the inside of this small enclosure. The drivers, they come with these cardboard and foam gaskets. It's actually for packaging, but makes a perfect little gasket when you mount stuff, keeps everything airtight. To mount the drivers, I'm using our M5 cap head screws. I really like these things. Good protection for your driver. It's almost impossible for the bit to slip out of them. And to mount the amplifier, I'm going to use these M4 cap head screws. A little bit smaller than the ones we're using on the drivers. This driver is it's a dual voice coil driver, and the amplifier's just got a single output. So to start off with, it's 4 ohms per coil, so we're going to go ahead and wire the coils in series to present an 8 ohm load to the amp. And to wire it in series, just take a jumper wire and go from the negative of one coil, run that over to the positive of the other coil. And that's it. Now a single driver is a single 8 ohm load, and it'll be plenty safe to drive with the amp. So now we can go ahead and mount the driver. So just took the black wire up to the negative, red wire up to the remaining positive, drop it in. And that's it. Got everything mounted and all ready to go. This little sub's ready for some action. You can finish this enclosure however you like. I do recommend removing the drivers and amp first. It'll make everything a whole heck of a lot easier. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. And to see more, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. I'm Chris, and hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks a lot.